Okay, everybody, welcome back to another great episode of the podcast. I have a good friend and a great guest from California today. So it's noon for her and 3 p.m. for me. If you're listening to us on your favorite directory, be sure and leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, the like button. And if there's any other bells and whistles, hit them so we can keep bringing you the kind of content that we're bringing you today. So we'll bring Michelle on the show in a minute. Let's start the credits and we'll get going. All right, Michelle. So thanks for joining me. I can't for the life of me remember how we connected. Maybe it was Podmatch or a booking agency or something like that. Do you remember?
I think my assistant may have found your podcast and just reached out directly.
Well, we're very famous in our own minds. So I guess when you do it long enough, people just start finding you. I think you're episode 295. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been about 4.5 years of just meeting people and keep interviewing. So I'm glad we met and connected. And today we're going to talk about, what all small business owners should know about pay-per-click advertising, and all the Google world and the other parts. It's not all Google, I guess, right? And the other parts of that world. But why don't we go back a little bit and talk about your background, your history, and how you got into that kind of stuff? That make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually come from an agency background. I worked at a small agency and that did pretty much all digital advertising. So I did Facebook ads, email marketing, pay-per-click advertising. I even did some web design at the start of my career. And then once I was there, I realized that I really wanted to hone in and focus on one area. I had big goals of wanting to go to corporate. That was
Right.
my goal out of college, but unfortunately, right out of college, I couldn't land something right away. So I ended up getting this job at a small marketing agency. And I actually think that it was a really great place to start because the way that I describe it, it's like buffet style marketing. You get a little taste of everything and
Right.
then you get to see what you like. And if you like something, then you're going to go back for more. And what I found was I really enjoyed pay-per-click advertising for local businesses. So I worked with a lot of attorneys, doctors, dentists, professional service providers,
Right.
and I was generating leads from the internet, and it just lit a fire in me because everything was performance driven, and if we couldn't perform, we would get fired. So
Right. Of course. Right. And I guess you only get results. Well, you can't guarantee they do business, but they're getting leads. That's really how you measure it.
Exactly. So generating phone calls and form
Right.
submissions from their website or their landing page. And I had big dreams still of wanting to go to corporate. So I applied to a role at Saatchi and Saatchi, which is the
Sure.
agency of record for Toyota.
Yeah.
And I got a role there. And at big corporations, typically you're not doing all the marketing, you're not doing buffet style marketing anymore. You
No.
become a specialist.
Right.
Yeah. So at that role, I was doing Google Ads, pay per click for Toyota. So
And
I
they're all
had
still out west, like in California. That's what
Yeah,
they're all.
when I was working for them, they were out in Torrance, and since then they've moved to LA. But yeah, so I started working there. I probably spent a good 2 years at Saatchi. It was really great experience. I think it really opened my eyes up to what the corporate world looked like, and
Yeah,
you know,
sure. Not very
com-
entrepreneurial.
Exactly. And comparing it to a situation where I was working at a really small company, things were really nimble. When projects would come down the pipeline, they'd expect you to do things right away. Corporate, things take a really long time.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this question. So you weren't a programmer, right? You weren't doing like web SEO programming and stuff. So how did you learn? Oh, I have two questions for you. One is how did you learn about all the pay-per-click advertising? And also, how does that apply to a company like Toyota, right? Who is not selling cars on the web? I mean, they might be selling cars on the web now, right? In some,
Right.
but they weren't there. So first of all, how did you learn the pay-per-click thing? I mean, what were you doing for these clients?
Yeah. So basically, the way that I learned, so I tried reading books, but it's different when you're reading like theory and then you're trying to apply it. The
Doesn't
best
work.
way, yeah, the best way to learn is just to do things and fail.
Okay.
And, I hate to say this, but, everyone comes from a place of being a beginner, but hey, I needed to learn. So I needed
Oh,
to just
yeah.
get my hands dirty and trial on some of my clients' accounts. So it was really a lot of trial and error to really figure out, what I was doing right and wrong. And, I did have a senior at that time that was coaching me, but
Right.
still you're going to make mistakes, but that's how you learn and that's how you get better.
Right.
So that's pretty much how I learned. It was really through trial and error and having a little bit of coaching, and then
Try
also
is trying. Are you trying different keywords for the client? Are you mixing things up? Certain ads online? What are you doing?
yeah, so there's a slew of strategies. Typically, the way that it works is with pay-per-click advertising, you select keywords that you think people would be searching for you
Right.
for, and you would then bid on those keywords to bring that traffic in and go to your website to then call you or submit a form, become
Right.
some
And
type
then
of lead.
if you bid the highest number, you don't necessarily pay for it until someone clicks on the link, right?
Exactly. That's why it's called pay per click advertising. So even if your ad appears in front of people, even if you had 1,000 impressions, you won't have to pay for that until someone actually clicks. And the cost of the click is determined based off of competition, and various different things in regards to the market and how well your account is optimized and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's pretty much how it works. So it's pretty much blending data analysis and creative together in
Sure.
order to drive performance and generate these business metrics for clients.
So what I do is if I bid on a set of keywords and I say I'll spend X amount of dollars, then you get a price per click, right? But you also have a budget. So it doesn't sound like you get a $25,000 bill because everybody clicked on the word, right?
Exactly. So you can restrict it based off of what your daily budget or monthly budget is.
Mhm.
You would set a monthly budget and then you would divide it by 30 and then you would put in a daily budget and then you can optimize based off of that.
Got it. So I understand. So a more popular keyword would eat up more of the budget quicker if they
Exactly.
click on it. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, so answer the second part of my question. So you go to Saatchi and Saatchi, you're working on the Toyota account, and they don't sell anything online. So what are they looking to do through that type of a program campaign?
That's actually a really great question. And that's what drove me crazy about working there because they weren't focused on leads. And
Right.
here I am. I come from a place of being so performance driven. I come from a place of trying to drive return on investment, return on ad spend. But then here they are, they're measuring things like click through rate or button clicks. And it was
Got
really shocking to me because they were spending, and this is at that time, I'm not sure. Well, since then, we were moving more towards a lead generation type of model,
it. Mhm.
or tracking more lower funnel metrics. But at that time, it was like, why are we tracking someone who clicks on, build a car or, something like that, where it doesn't show that they're like actually super serious. They just want to like see the different colors of the car or look at the
Yeah.
different makes and models. So that was really eye opening to me,
Yeah.
because
I guess Jen would have been, especially then, more of an interest of like the local dealership, right? And Toyota leaves it up to them to find the right.
Exactly. Because I worked on national. So that's why the metrics were a little bit more awareness based,
Yeah,
rather than like actual like lead gen lower funnel. So
right.
that's,
You're looking
so
just to get their name out there and to know that people are visiting, and but they're definitely more of elusive. I mean, they're like traditional advertising, right? Advertising is just kind of to get your name out there and get people to follow you and get people to know your name and keep the brand in front of them, I guess. But pay per click, it seems like I shouldn't use the word oxymoron, but it seems a little bit funny, right? To take that approach with a national or an international, in that case, company that's not really concerned about leads on the ground they leave that up to the dealerships. Now, maybe that's changing, right?
yeah. Yeah, at that time it was just an awareness play. And that was something that I wasn't used to because coming from working with small businesses, a lot of these small businesses, they don't care about having their name in front of people. They just want like of course that would be great to have,
Right, but
but
that's an
they want yeah, they
approach.
want the leads. They don't really care about like blasting, media dollars like everywhere so that their name is known necessarily, but they just want the leads. So
Right.
that was really hard for me to like change my mindset from going from, oh, we need to generate X amount of leads to then, oh, we just need this many impressions and then the client's happy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's interesting. So it got you frustrated though, and then you're like, I want to go back and be more on the ground, hands-on with smaller businesses, right?
Yeah, so I think what it came down to is it came down to an identity crisis, really, when I was there because I really like wanted to work in corporate. I thought that this was my end goal. I thought that this was
That
going
was
to
your
be
career, right?
that was the vision of my
Yeah.
career. Like I had dreams of working at Saatchi and Saatchi since I was in college. I went to the job fairs and applied, but it just took a really long time to get in. And once I was there, I was like, wait a minute, this is not, this is,
Terrible.
yeah,
It's
this
like,
is,
right? So all my friends, we would go to law school, and you'd have this image of like getting a job with one of the big law firms, and this and so prestigious, and then you get the job, and your life is terrible. You hate it. You're working crazy hours. People are miserable, and you're not really doing the work that you really thought you were doing, really helping.
Exactly. So it's just so interesting how, when I was in college, I just thought that that was going to be the end goal and the forever path for me. And then once I was in corporate, not just at Saatchi, but once I moved on to another organization in corporate, I just realized that it wasn't for me.
Yeah. Now, when you in college, you were what, marketing and advertising major, or
Correct. Yeah.
so uh, a lot of your friends, your colleagues in the program, did they have the set? Was that like the common thing? Like, oh, well, you go work for Gray Advertising or whatever. These big
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you see your friends go on and do it, then you feel like a failure if you didn't do that. So that's kind of what happened with me. Some of my friends would go work for Disney and, Boeing and some really big companies out here in LA. And here I am. I get this job at a small marketing no name agency working on these
right.
local attorney accounts. And it's not that I'm embarrassed about it because I'm still
You might
getting
learn more than
experience.
they did, though. You know, they were
Exactly.
doing
So,
everything.
mhm.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask you a question when you said that. How long? Because you had said that you won some awards when you were in corporate, right?
Yeah,
So
so
what did you win? And it obviously didn't help you, like, say, oh, I want to do this for longer. So what happened with that?
yeah, so after Saatchi, I moved on to another organization called Neo at Ogilvy. So Ogilvy is also a well-known advertising agency, but this is yes.
Yeah.
So it's the performance marketing arm of Ogilvy and Mather,
Okay.
and I worked on accounts like Sage accounting software, AMPM Arco, so British Petroleum, and we had entered into a huge industry awards. So it's essentially think of it kind of like the Oscars of the industry. So it's called the Drum Search Awards, and we applied. So basically, it was for Sage accounting software. We leveraged a really interesting business to business campaign strategy that focused all of our budget on top performing markets, and it drove an amazing amount of leads, year over year. And clients were super thrilled with it. So we took that case study and entered it into an actual contest, which was the Oscars of the industry. And we won. We won, but believe it or not, we won. They made the announcement, and I actually had left that organization right after. So they
Yeah.
texted me and they're like, "Oh, congrats, we won." And I was like, "That's awesome." And I wish I could have gotten the credit while I was there, but yeah.
Interesting, though, it was a lead generation program. It wasn't the thing
Yeah.
that really turned you off about corporate.
Yeah, so actually what happened was so one of the main reasons why I had left Saatchi was because I wanted a career growth, and also I wanted to work on more lead generation accounts. So I
Yeah.
thought that, like, okay, so instead of going back to a really small agency and working like with these local attorneys and local doctors, maybe I'll just go make a transition into still a bigger agency, but do lead generation over there. So that's what I did. So that was
Specifically
Neil.
the department, that's what they worked on?
Yes, correct.
Lead
So that
generation
was,
account. Got it.
yeah, that was Neo at Ogilvy. So yeah, so I was working on lead gen accounts out there for probably 2 to 3 years, and at the start of the pandemic, decided to go on my own to start freelancing. So actually, the story is I was freelancing even when I was working at Saatchi on the side. So I
Oh,
was
moonlight.
moonlighting,
Yeah,
moonlighting.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so but that was before you were at Ogilvy, right?
Correct. So the story is, I was So I told you I was kind of bored working at Saatchi, but I was trying to, hang in there, wanted to put in my time and do what I could to, move the needle in any way possible. But still, I felt like something was missing.
Yeah.
So I connected with a small time agency owner who has a bunch of local clients. And when I was working with him, I offered to do some freelance for him, and we ended up, having this really great relationship where, I helped him manage his Google Ads pay-per-click accounts for his small businesses. So it reminded me of my very first job, but I was
Right.
doing this instead of, during 9 to 5, which is my usual time of working, 5 to 9.
Right.
After work, and then even on the weekends. So I was finding more joy in doing the freelance work, but in the back of my mind, I could never let myself quit my full-time job. That's scary.
Right.
Be leaving a lot of benefits, a really, nice salary behind, and no guarantee of what's to come. So
Yeah,
that's
no.
why I thought about it because I really enjoyed it, but I always just shoved that idea down, and just tried to, hide it under the rug because I just couldn't see myself going down that path and couldn't really imagine myself being successful at that.
Right, and it's a new path, right? Because now you gotta find I mean, you were getting work from this guy, but it
Mhm.
wouldn't be like that forever, so you'd have to find your own customers also, your own clients, your own accounts, and
Mhm.
it's hard. Selling is hard, and, prospecting and building business, it's definitely difficult. You just I mean, I guess you could lead gen for yourself, right? But you still have to close the
Yeah,
deals, you know?
exactly, exactly. So yeah, when I was working at Saatchi, I was doing this moonlighting on the side. I loved it, but I just couldn't let myself just do it full time, even though I secretly wanted to. And then eventually moved on to Neo at Ogilvy. Still had the freelance thing on the
Right, you
side.
still work there,
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't talk about it. It wasn't anything illegal or anything because I wasn't competing against or working
It
with
wasn't their
any.
marketplace, right? Yeah,
Exactly. But you just don't want to talk about those types of things like in corporate, or else people start questioning if you're, if you're actually like there for the right reasons. But
exactly.
yeah, it was interesting. But what I think the big turning point for me was just I was just unhappy with the commute. I was commuting like 30 miles a day, and if you know LA, it is just a
It could take you
crazy.
4 hours.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it was 30 miles one way. So it was a 60-mile round trip. In the beginning, it was a really good gig. I really enjoyed, working there. I don't have anything negative to say. It was a really great experience. It just really came down to I didn't really see myself going in the direction of the associate director role or becoming like a big time manager or director.
Right? You'd have to move up.
Exactly. Because in this career, the higher you go up, you just become removed from the day to day and you're just managing people. And that was just not
Yeah.
my interest.
Yeah. So the pandemic was kind of like the breaking point, right? I think that was for a lot of people. Like now you're home, right? You're like, wow, I don't have to drive 60 miles and spend 2.5 hours in my car, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I actually left right when the lockdown happened. So it was like right at the start of March 2020. So I
But
just
that was
I
just a coincidence.
it
Like,
was just a coincidence. Yeah. It was yeah. It's kind of funny because I tell people that I think I'm the pioneer of the great resignation because I
right,
didn't yeah, I didn't realize that that I was going to that this thing was going to happen. But after I put in my 2 weeks notice and then they started telling all the employees you could work from home, I thought I made a really big mistake
yeah,
because
that's right. Okay, yeah.
yeah, cuz I yeah, I always wanted to work from home. I always wanted a job where I could work from home, but at that time working from home was looked down upon in corporate
Like
especially.
unheard of. Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So now that the corporate is letting everyone work from home, I was like, man, I'm really missing out. What I should in my head, I thought maybe what I should have done was just not not quit and let this thing happen. But I didn't know that the
Right.
pandemic was going to be that serious. We just
Yeah.
thought
Where did
that
that leave you though? You quit your job, right? And what was like the day what was Michelle's plan the day after
the
you quit?
plan was okay. So the plan that I told everyone was I was going to do freelancing full time, but secretly, I was actually going to look for a remote job at some type of agency. But I just didn't have anything lined up, and I was kind of embarrassed to not like tell people because like when you leave corporate, they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
where are you going?" And
Oh, good, good. Tell us, send us a note, Michelle, when you get there, right?
yeah, yeah. Tell me how everything's going. Tell me how amazing your life is now that you left us. So, when I told people that I was leaving to do freelance full time, that really wasn't 100% true. I was going to go and try to find a remote job somewhere else and take some time off. But what ended up happening was kind of again, going back to the name of your podcast, accidental
Yeah.
entrepreneur. Like I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know. I just didn't know how I was going to become one. And then, this pandemic happened, and I was looking for some 9 to 5 jobs after I'd left, but no one was hiring.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, since I told everyone that I'm going to be doing freelance full time, let's just try doing this. So still working with this other, small agency doing freelance part time, but then
So
I
you
was like,
still
okay,
work during the pandemic through that agency?
I did, but it was it was very minimal work. It was just really small projects here and there. But it was eye-opening because it was an opportunity that the universe was giving to me saying, "Hey, you should use this time to really figure out if this is something that you want to pursue
Right.
full time
Yeah.
because
And
no
now
one was hiring."
the world was making a shift to working at home now, which is what you always wanted.
Yes,
So
yes.
silver linings, I guess. I don't know. The pandemic was very hard for some people, and other people they just got new opportunities.
Yeah, so I feel like it was part luck, but then also I used a lot of that time to really do some soul searching and
Yeah.
figure out, what I truly wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because all this stuff was happening, but it was quiet at home. I could really sit down and think about how I wanted to plan my future and plan my dream life and really think about what do I want to, how do I envision my life being in 3 to 5 years and looking 3 years ahead where I'm sitting now. It's amazing that, I'm now doing podcast interviews and that I have the freedom to leave work on a Friday, work
Yeah.
Friday, on Friday at 3 p.m. if
Yeah.
I want to.
It's so
So
different.
there's just so much great freedom.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we do this? Because I want to get into what your life looks like today. I know you have an agency, how you're running your company, and then maybe we can also talk about, without giving away the farm, we could talk about, the things that small business owners need to think about when it comes to deciding, does pay-per-click advertising make sense for me? Does it not? What are the things I can do? I think a lot of people are a little lost when it comes to, I'm talking small business owner, right? What they do
Right.
in online marketing and digital marketing. So can we do that? We'll take a commercial. So I got a couple of people paying me a little bit of money, and I'll play those commercials about 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and we can get into that. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, the system's having trouble with commercials, so nobody gets commercials today. I'll put it into the audio version later on. We're not going to do it. Okay? I don't know, some sort of buffering or something like that. So, all right. So let's get back into what your agency looks like now, how you built it. Because obviously, I assume it's virtual, right? You don't have 14 people working in your house. So maybe we can get
No.
into that. Right. So maybe we get into that, and then we'll talk about things that business owners should know, and tips and things to look for, and how do you make decisions about that stuff.
Yeah. So as I had mentioned, I started my business in 2020, and since then was just flying solo here and there, working with freelancers on small projects. And eventually this year, I brought on an assistant. So it's me and assistant that were working together remotely. I've purposely designed my business to be more of a lifestyle business. I don't see myself managing like tens of, hundreds of people.
Right.
That's just not my end goal. My end goal is to really have the freedom for family, for relationships, and this having the business is just, it's a privilege, and it's a really great way for me to, allow myself to have the freedom to do whatever I need to do whenever.
Right.
So
So all the people you have that are part of your agency are virtual.
correct. Yes.
How
hmm
many people you have in your organization now?
So just one right now. And then I have freelancers here and
Yep.
there that help me with like small projects, probably anywhere like up to 10, but they're not like ongoing per
Right. Right.
se.
So you
Yeah,
plug them in when you need them. That's how
exactly.
a micro agency works. So how are you, as a business owner, how are you developing your business? Do you find that challenging? I mean, you're a pay-per-click expert, so
Yeah. I think there's a couple ways to answer this question. In terms of development, there's just a couple things. Like I don't know if like you were referring to like how I get customers and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So before this year, I was doing a lot of outreach methods to get clients. So whether it's like cold email, LinkedIn outreach, um, but what I found is by doing a lot of those methods, like, and I still got clients. So those are still like still viable methods. I don't have anything against them. The challenge is you're not really building brand equity when you're just doing like direct outreach. You're not really building a brand. You're just reaching out to people, telling them
It's like
that you
networking,
can do
right?
these
Yeah.
things. Exactly. It's like networking. I tried networking too. It's just not my thing, because it's too much one on one and having to show up in person at
Right.
like BNI events.
Yeah.
And
The whole thing.
the thing is, like, the problem with that too is a lot of the people at these networking events, they're not really even your ideal
Right.
customers
That's the
anyway.
problem, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the thing is, they're part of these groups because they don't have money for marketing. And I'm trying to sell my marketing services. So it just
The
defeats
wrong
the
pool.
purpose.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, I tried in-person networking. I tried, direct outreach. It worked really well.
You would like
But
direct
it
outreach, like you would identify a business, and then
exactly.
you're right.
and do direct outreach, not in like a slimy way. I'm sure you
Connect with
probably
them.
get emails.
Yeah, of course, some of that.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
ways people
So
connect with me. They say, "Hey, I see Michelle. We do this and that." And if it's something that interests me, I'd be like, "Okay." But if they just said we're some agency, we do this, I would just delete it. So
exactly. So since then, I had great success with it, but I just realized that instead of me doing direct outreach to people, I want people to come to me.
yeah,
I want people to be primed and ready to buy. So the challenge with that is if you're going to go the more inbound, method instead of outbound, it's going to take a while to build your brand. So at
yeah,
this uh, at the start of the year, I had invested a lot in getting a YouTube channel set up. So I have a YouTube channel now, and it's really just for personal branding and also for my business, where I share tips on how to get certain results using Google Ads. And believe it or not, people are finding it.
they do
So
virtual content. I do the same thing for law, and over time I broke out the brand too of my personal brand with the podcast because it was kind of getting lost in the law firm. But I
yep,
think people overlook like personal branding. They don't think it's valuable. And I think it is because they want to know you. They
exactly,
yeah. So
exactly.
do you have a website for the business, and then you have the YouTube channel for yourself?
Yes. So the website is for the business, and the YouTube channel is a combination of myself and the business. So the name of the channel, like if you're looking it up, it will just say like Michelle Kopp Level 28 Media.
Got it.
And I have my own personal like LinkedIn profile there because I want the name to be associated with like Google Ads expert, and I
Right.
want people to associate the company name with like Google Ads agency. So that's why I did it that way. Originally, it was just Level 28 Media, and it was just showing my face. But then people didn't know who I am. They just see this, they just see my picture, and they know my face, but then they don't know my name. So that was something.
Yeah.
But it's just,
Side to what you do.
yeah.
Or are you going to take snippets and throw it on TikTok and stuff like that?
Eventually, yeah.
Yep.
So right now, I'm just trying to build up a bunch of content and then eventually splice it up and create little nuggets that I could put across, the short form content and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's a great discovery channel. And if I say, if I have to, say that I regret something, it's not starting it sooner
Right.
because yeah, it takes time. It really does. And believe it or not, I actually had thoughts of potentially like quitting at some points where I wasn't growing. And I was like, okay, well, this is a lot of work, but I just need to keep doing it. And I've been consistent every single week this year,
Yeah.
and it's built up into something. And I think like with content, you just have to realize that it just takes time,
It does.
lots
It
of
does.
time.
And you mentioned it before. Consistency is so important. Like you have to do it so it's comfortable for you to create the content and put it out. That's why I run the podcast the way I do. I edit it the same way all the time because I don't want to burn out. And I think, yeah, it did. It took 10, 12 months, more than a year before I got anything back from the podcast in terms of recognition and connecting with
Hmm.
people and stuff like that. And I think people really, like you said, they don't really see the value. They give up too soon. They're like, well, I mean, I posted on LinkedIn one time and it didn't do. I'm like, one time. Yeah, how about once
Hmm.
a day for 60 days and see what happens? Once a week for 180 days. For 6 months,
Hmm.
see if you start to get some recognition. I know it's a little bit off the pay per click that we're talking
Hmm.
about, but I think digital content is, people. I think a lot of attorneys are a good example, right? They
Yeah.
worked with attorneys before, right? A lot of them feel
Yes.
like, well, if I put free stuff out, if I put information out on the internet, what do they need me for? I'm like, what are you about? Like the world doesn't work that way. You can't give away information. People are just going to go do it on their own. Now they're lawyers. It's just that they start
Mm-mm.
following you and saying, you know what? Michelle knows what she's
I
talking
trust them.
about. Right. It builds
Mhm.
trust. And they do learn some things to become comfortable with whatever you do. And then when they're ready and they're the right customer and they can buy, they're going to call you. They're not going to do it on their own. That's stupid.
Mhm.
And if they really want to do it on their own, they're not a customer for you anyway.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, so let's get into maybe things that business owners should think about because I really think that I find on a regular basis that people just don't everybody knows what pay-per-click advertising is, like I said before the break, that we didn't have. And they and they but they don't really know what it is. Like, they know what it is when you're on the internet and you're clicking Google, but they don't equate to how it can help their business and what they can do. And I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, yeah. So I can certainly give a little bit of insight into that. So when you're searching on Google, what happens is when you search, then you're going to be taken to something called the search engine results page. So you get to see all the answers or all the listings that Google is going to be giving you based off of what you're searching.
Okay.
On this search engine results page, at the very top, there's something called the paid search pay-per-click results, and it will say something like sponsored by, or
Yeah.
something like that, or this is an ad, but it doesn't really look like an ad. It looks like it blends into the page
Right.
really well.
You've like bought your way to
um
the top of the page.
Exactly. So kind of think of it like you bought like a fast pass, way to the front of the line at Disneyland, right? So that's pretty much what pay-per-click advertising is. You're buying your way to the top, versus below pay-per-click advertising is the organic listings, which is the way to get there is using SEO, search
Right.
engine optimization. And SEO, even though it's free, to when someone clicks on any of those listings, it can take a lot of time to appear because there's a lot of different things that you have to do to your website, whether it's writing blogs, optimizing the pages, getting reviews,
And you
and a
always
lot
have
of
to
other
be doing
technical
it, right?
things. Yeah.
Yeah, because as soon as you stop doing SEO in a week, everything's, or maybe 2 days, everything's going to be stale, right?
Exactly. So that's what I don't actually touch SEO. That's not my bread and butter, but everyone wants SEO. I would want SEO, and I do pay per click. But what tends to happen is there's a lot of local businesses that compete in very, very competitive markets where it could take 1 to 2 years to even rank for a keyword like orthodontist near me in, let's say, Seattle. So instead of waiting 1 to 2 years for maybe potentially showing up on page one, you don't even need to wait. Just use Google Ads, and as long as you have things set up properly, your ads can start appearing within 24 hours, as long as you're not violating any rules.
Right.
So you're just jumping to the front of the line, and your ads are on top of all the organic listings.
Now, if you showed up in the sponsored links and I scrolled down and saw your website and clicked on it below that, then you don't pay?
You don't pay. You don't pay. But having both is ideal. Having a
Obviously.
pay-per-click strategy, exactly. Having pay-per-click strategy and a SEO strategy is a really great approach. And I always recommend clients to do both. But if you want to show it faster, pay-per-click advertising. But the back end goal should always be getting your organic listings up. If you get ranked organically, then I guess the question might be, then should I even still be doing pay-per-click advertising? And the way that I would answer it is, it just depends on what your return on investment is, because actually having both appearing on the first page of Google is going to help with your brand awareness as
Of
well.
course.
So if someone sees you on the sponsored listing and the organic, it's like, oh wow, I see them twice and they probably know what they're doing. So I want to see if I could potentially do business with them.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, okay, so how does like a business owner go about, because this is all based on keywords, right? And you don't really know what
Yeah.
they're going to search. So if I'm a small business attorney, right? How do I know, how do I start to come up with the keywords? I mean, I guess you have tools that can do that, but you come up and you say, here's 12 keywords and these are searched a lot. How do I determine what's better and what's not?
Yeah, so there are tools. The best tool out there is free, and it is part of the Google Ads platform. It's called the Google Keyword Planner,
Okay.
and you would start by selecting your keywords that you think people would just search you for. So
Okay.
small business attorney. And then from there, Google Keyword Planner will give you other ideas that are related to that. So then you would be able to build a list off of that. So that's one way. Another way could potentially be using the Google Keyword Suggest. So you could go to Google and type in small business attorney. And then, like when you search in Google, they'll have like a drop down with
Yeah.
a bunch of different auto suggest.
Right.
That's also another way to go about finding popular keywords that are in relation to your
That's
keyword.
why it's coming up that way.
Exactly. So that's why they appear that way. It's because it's based off of how popular those terms are.
Oh,
Um, and in terms of people searching. Another way is asking your ideal clients, how would you go about searching for a corporate attorney or a small business attorney on Google? What would you type in? And then you would get some ideas from there. So there's a couple different ways, but those are the top three ways that I would recommend any beginner.
so do you think that keywords and all this stuff kind of works better in some industries versus other? I always have this argument with, see, I think there's business out there for everybody, but clearly, like in my world, right? A lot of the leads I get through the internet, unless they're referred to me or something like that, they're usually not great. And
Hmm.
because I'm working with higher end clients, and sometimes they're scams. I mean, sometimes there are these people that are like, oh, well, we're looking for a construction attorney to handle a contract in New Jersey. We're selling this $1 million piece of equipment. And there's been attorneys that have like cashed fake checks and gotten taken for $250,000 because of these scams. I get them all the time. I recognize them now and I know what they are.
Oh my
Yeah, I
goodness.
was in
Yeah.
the middle of one and I followed the trail and I realized it was fake and then I reported them or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Yeah.
because you worked
I think,
at one point, right?
yeah, no, I work with a lot of attorneys. I think for you, because of your specialty area, it can be tricky because if you're going after small business like a keyword like small business attorney, you have no idea what they're looking for in terms of a case. You don't know if it's like a small claims case or like this construction type of case.
Yeah.
So I think if you are a small business attorney, beyond just you going after keywords like small business attorney, which I think could be
Yeah.
dangerous, yeah, because if you just go after small business attorney, you have no idea what their situation is. But if you want to look more for like, tell me then, like, what type of cases do you typically, um, you know, uh, try to attract?
I work with a lot of business owners who might be buying another small business, like in their industry, or
Okay.
selling their business or something like that,
Uh
because
huh.
they can't do those
Yeah.
things on their own. It's too complicated.
Exactly, exactly. So you would want keywords around that. So that would be something that would yield you better results than just like a small business attorney because
Yeah,
that's still really broad. Even though that's what you do, that's not really like that doesn't really tell us about what the case is, and you could be getting just a bunch of random inquiries, even for like small jobs where someone's like, "Oh, I'm looking for like a free consultation for this type of thing," and you're like, "I don't want to waste my time."
yeah. I think the PI, the personal injury attorneys, tend to, you could put in automobile attorney or lemon law attorney, something very specific.
Yeah, wrongful death,
Yeah,
motorcycle attorney. Yeah, so I think other specialty areas you get a better chance because of those specific
right.
terms. I think
Uh,
another
uh,
challenging
yeah,
another challenging specialty is like real estate attorney.
yeah,
Because a real estate attorney, okay, well, are you hiring me? Like, are you looking for a real estate attorney because you're trying to kick someone out of your house?
right.
Did you buy a
Could
house?
be a closing, could be this. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the challenge. And I actually had a real estate attorney reach out to me, and we experienced that same issue because
Well,
we
what did
can't
they
just
do?
go
They
after
more of
that.
a closing attorney, like they did closings, or
They did like evictions and
yeah.
stuff like
Well,
that.
they got to be a
Yeah.
fictions attorney. You got to do real specific.
Exactly, exactly. So that's how I would approach it. So pay per click is not for everyone. I've had campaigns, and I'll admit it. I'll have campaigns that haven't worked out for clients, but at the end of the day, it's my job as the person that's managing the account to let clients know, hey, this is not. We tried it,
Right. Kind of.
and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Off the top of your head, in what industries do it works really well in? We'll put law aside for the moment.
A lot of local businesses.
Dentists.
It works. Yeah, dentists, doctors, um, lawyers. It works for most lawyers, but I think in your case, you just have to be a lot more specific.
Yeah.
And then also like the trades, like locksmiths,
Plumber.
garage door repair,
Yeah.
plumber, HVAC. Yeah, any home renovation, home construction, that type of thing, those tend to do really well when it's B2C. B2B works too, but you just have to approach it from a different angle.
Got it. Got it. Well, it makes sense, right? Because the homeowner's always looking for something, and sometimes they ask their friends, and sometimes it's easier to jump on Google. And I think
Exactly.
20 years ago, you were like, I'm going to ask a friend. But nowadays,
You go to Google.
what gives me what gives me business and leads is reviews.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say Google reviews, Google My Business.
Yeah, because I have a friend of mine who's in Florida, and she's very good with her practice. She does a lot of trust in estates. Like I do a lot of estate planning also. She does a lot of estate planning in Florida. She's very into systems, like running her business, tracking everything. So she said, every time I close a matter, I finish a piece of business, I send an email to a client saying, hey,
Asking for a review.
yeah. And I get people that said, well, you had more reviews than anyone else. So I called you,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps your SEO, and it helps the whole thing. I think all these things have to kind of, right? They have to kind of be
It's an ecosystem.
at
Yeah.
the same
Mm-hmm.
time. Yeah, you can't just do one thing and say, that didn't work. It might have been
Yeah.
something else. If your SEO was good, maybe the pay-per-click would have worked because they work together, kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And in some industries it's harder to get reviews. So let's say like it for a bankruptcy attorney, people are embarrassed about
Right.
sharing their situation, and a lot of them don't want to leave reviews. Or family law attorney, you don't want to go airing your dirty laundry on the internet, sharing about, your child custody issue, even though this attorney helped you.
Right.
But yeah, so
Right.
that's why it can be challenging
Yeah.
sometimes.
No, I have a friend who's got a family law firm, and she's pretty big. She's probably got 30 or 40 attorneys working for her now. And her husband, who came to run the practice, is like, has your background. He's not an attorney.
Yeah.
So you go to
Yeah.
the website, it is like digital marketing on crack, not crack, steroids. And things are
Yeah.
popping up, and they do pay-per-click advertising and SEO. They get so many leads through the internet, but a lot of them are, small cases. You're not going to get somebody who's getting divorced and they got a $20 million estate. Usually you're going to be recommended to somebody. Your CPA is going to say, hey,
Mhm.
why don't you call my friend? He's one of the top family law,
Yeah.
but they get a huge volume of business, smaller business.
Mhm.
How about retail
Mhm.
stores? Like I find that you go in a retail store, there's some retail stores that'll say, hey, we'll give you a free whatever if you put, hashtag us on Instagram or whatever it is. And then some they're off. They don't do anything. So you think that works for retail stores?
Oh, like giving some type of incentive to get reviews?
Yeah, and pay-per-click and things like that. Yeah, get them in.
So, yeah, giving incentives to get reviews, it can be tricky because apparently for Yelp, that's like against the policies. Even though I've seen it all the time, I go to like a coffee shop and they're like, "Oh, hey, leave us a review, show us a review, and you get a free coffee." So it is it's against the rules. I think even Google has some rules about that too, but I know it works.
Yeah,
So
no,
just yeah.
absolutely. We were at a
Mhm.
cigar shop in Florida, and they're like, "Listen, we'll give you free cigars. Just you know,
Leave a review.
on Instagram." It wasn't even, was it a yeah? It was leave a review. That's what it was. It was a Google review or
Mhm.
Instagram post or something.
Get a free cigar.
Right. That's exactly what it was. It was pretty funny. Okay, so how would I get started then if I'm the small business owner? I use the tools that you
Yeah.
on your own
Yeah,
or
so
working with you. If I don't have the
I
budget
think
for it, like how do I get started to get the budget so then I can offload it to you and get better results?
the challenge with answering that question is no matter what, you're going to need a budget for pay per click. So whether it's you're paying a professional or not, you need the budget so you could pay Google.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work where, oh, let's just try it for like $100 and see what we get. And if we get $1,000 return, I'll put the $1,000 back in. There is a minimum that you need, and it really just depends on the market, and it depends on how much you can afford. So let's say that you're like a personal injury attorney in Los Angeles, where I'm at. Average cost per click, $1,000.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah, sure. Very
so
competitive, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But remember, those cases can be worth
Millions
millions
of dollars.
upon millions.
Right.
So of course, you can't just go into it thinking like, oh, I'm just going to put $1,000 and then I'm going to be able to see a return on investment. No, you need to allow yourself room because not every click is going to turn into a lead.
Right.
And you need to have a sufficient budget because it's like you're driving a car with barely any gas in it, and then eventually it's just going to go out, and then you're just going to be stuck in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
So I always recommend my clients, to have a certain level of budget, but that budget's just going to depend on the market and the research that I do, in order to see some level of results.
Yeah.
So I always do forecasting, and I'll say, okay, based off of this, based off of your market, we would probably need about $2,000 a month, and this is how many leads we expect to get. If your close rate is this, depending on how good you are at retaining these clients, then this is how many clients you could get. But these are all assumptions,
Right.
and there's also no guarantee.
Right. And you need enough data to be able to extrapolate those things. If you only did it for a month and you say, well, that we got one lead, it didn't work. You need more time to.
You need more time. Exactly. I say a good 60 to 90 days. Typically, I can generate results within a month, but I like to buy myself a little bit of time, because sometimes there's just some cases where it can take a really long time to just figure out, especially if I haven't worked in that niche before,
Right.
figuring out like how it works. But for attorneys, I've had bankruptcy attorneys sign on with me in the same day we turn things on, they start getting leads. So it just really all
Yeah, because
depends.
I find like bankruptcy attorneys and maybe even divorce attorneys, the things that are more private, you don't want to call your friend and say, hey, do you know a bankruptcy attorney? So you'll go to the internet to find somebody
Exactly.
anonymously so other people don't know about it. So I would think they would get great results.
They do. And that's why I love working with bankruptcy attorneys. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, because yeah. And right now is actually a really good time for bankruptcy attorneys, because lots of people are getting foreclosed on,
Yeah,
credit issues, and people are always going to be having money issues.
it's the nature of life. We all get in trouble.
But the challenge though with bankruptcy attorneys is a lot of their clients don't have money,
Right.
so to
Yeah.
pay them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I look, I have colleagues that do bankruptcy. I'm like, well, how do you get paid? If the person's going into bankruptcy, they can get paid if you have money like left over at the beginning, you can give to them. And then they get to, that doesn't get taken back. But yeah, if you got a client that thing's going on for a while, it's like a divorce attorney, right? We used to do collections when I had a smaller firm with other partners. We had more
yeah.
divorce attorneys who were collection clients because they would get into this divorce and would get down the road and they had a $50,000, $80,000 bill, wasn't getting paid anymore, and the judge won't let them out of the case. So,
Hmm.
so it can be lucrative, but there's obviously, risks to.
Downsides. Hmm.
Exactly. All right, Michelle. So I thank you for spending time with me. So you gave a lot of great advice, and hopefully people will start to, learn about how this can really help their business more than sitting around and thinking it's only good for Toyota and these other companies. How can people like interact with you and learn about you? The YouTube channel, we'll put a link in the show notes, right? How
Yes,
else can they
yes.
find you?
Yeah, so they could go to my website, level28media.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can just type in my name and connect with me there. I'd be happy to connect.
All right. Well, I can't thank you enough. Enjoy the holiday weekend. And if I can actually get the credits to play, great. And if not, just hang on and I'll have to edit them in later.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mitch.
Okay. I would say no. So I'm going to turn that off and I'll stop the recording.